Welcome back to Deck Check, where you better check yourself before you deck yourself. We are so excited to have you back for the 12th episode of the Off Meta podcast. I'm Ganesh.
And I'm Samurai Dancer. Today we get Speaking Freaky with the Goblin, Shaman, Red Bomb, and as we do a full deck tech with Mono Red Cory on Kiki Jiki, the Mirror Breaker. Welcome to Off Meta, where the brews that are hot shoot their shot.
In this show, we focus on the fascinating off-meta cEDH commanders people haven't seen yet, like the wonderful Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker. We'll have a fresh new episode every Friday by 6 p.m. Central Time.
Off Meta is not responsible for the tournament results of decks and cards mentioned on Off Meta. If there's a brew you'd like us to take a look at, or you'd like to appear on the show itself, let us just know in the Discord or in the comments. Also, if you're looking for more Off Meta resources, head on over to the cEDH Brewers Base. Ganesh, what is that?
The cEDH Brewers Base is a database for non-meta deck lists, meant to showcase the variety of decks in the format, but also encourage deck exploration and creativity, similar to what we're doing with the Off Meta podcast. It's also a place for new players to find non-meta decks to try out. We will have it linked below in the description. Coming up on the Off Meta podcast.
But if you still like to go turbo in a monocolored deck that's a little bit cheaper on the mana base, and if you just like red, it's a deck you should definitely try out.
Before we get into Kiki Jiki fully, we have a quick section for off-meta news where we share with you off-meta decks that have performed well in the past couple of weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, Ganesh, but this last week we had SCGCon Las Vegas. I love Vegas. It's a great place. And we had some pretty cool things do pretty well there. Yeah, Teferi, Temporal Archmage, showed up and cashed out in Vegas this week when it took 9th at the cEDH event. Teferi, Temporal Archmage is for 2 blue and 4 generic. You get a Planeswalker Teferi that has +1. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put one of them on to your hand and the other on the bottom of your library. For -1, untap up to 4 target permanents. Remember that one, folks. It's -10. Never happens, but you get an emblem where you can activate Planeswalker abilities you control at any player's turn, anytime you can cast an instant. But more importantly, the last line of text is how this deck works. Teferi Temporal Archmage can be your commander. This deck looks to abuse the great mana rocks that, well, every deck has access to, but only blue can really enjoy, like Basalt Monolith, and of course, our wonderful, wonderful One Ring, which is not a mana rock, but is really good in this deck. But more importantly, it takes advantage of the combo of the Chain Veil. For 4 generic, it's a legendary artifact. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't activate a Planeswalker ability or Planeswalker this turn, you lose 2 life. Doesn't matter. Its big ability is for 4 mana, you can tap it, and for each Planeswalker you control, you may activate one of its loyalty abilities once this turn, as though none of its loyalty abilities have been activated this turn. The more important fact about this is this stacks. When you do this, each time you do this, it puts another one of these for an activation of a Planeswalker ability. So what you do is you tick down Teferi, untapping 4 permanents, generally a positive mana rock, and the Chain Veil, generate infinite mana with this by sacking it out and then playing it again from the command zone. But this time, it has all those other activations you stacked up, letting you go infinite.
Yes, I see.
The way this deck works is just with infinite turns and a little bit of abuse with Urza High Lord Artificer and Hullbreaker Horror, leading you to infinite combat. Pretty good deck.
Yeah, for sure. So next up we have Yeva, Nature's Herald. So this is a 2 green, so 4 mana total for a legendary elf shaman, 4/4. It's got flash, and it gives your green creature spells flash. You can cast them as though they had flash. So this is going to be a bit of a stacks deck, and a toolbox deck. So this deck is very, very interested in basically responding to the board, and it has a lot of these like weird like stacks light effects, or at least a few of them. For example, there's Manglehorn. There is Heartwood Storyteller. So what Manglehorn does is when ATBs, you can start an artifact, and then artifacts your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. Hardwood Storyteller is whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, each of that player's opponents may draw a card. And then there's like a few other effects that just kind of stop players, or at least discourage them from doing certain things. The way this deck is actually going to win is there is loops with Ashaya, turning all of your creatures into lands, and then there's like one of the simpler ones is Ashaya turning all your creatures into lands, and then you have something like an Argothian Elder where you can tap to untap 2 target lands, and of course if this is a land you can untap itself and make infinite mana that way. But overall, besides that, it's a fairly standard mono green deck, and the fact that it can do almost everything it wants to do at instant speed makes it just very threatening. And that took down, that also made top 16 at our SCG Con.
Ooh, pretty sweet.
Yeah.
You know what's also sweet? A
What?
great Kali of the Vast list took home 8th by betting on black and racking up stacks of cash with red.
Yes.
That's right, Kali of the Vast. It's nice when the classics do well. Kali of the Vast is 1 generic and Mardu. You get a legendary creature, human cleric with flying. When it attacks, you can put an opponent. You may put an angel, demon, or dragon creature from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking that opponent. The way this takes advantage of this is with great creatures like Doom Whisper, Hoarding Broodlord, Razaket the Foul-Blooded, or Villainous Broker of Blood.
Mhm.
The way this deck wins is pretty simple. It's, of course, got the normal idea of just, hitting you with big things and winning, but it also has Saw in Half to create, the wonderful combination of using Grinding Station. It also added some new cards from the new set, like Chthonian Nightmare and Static Prison. These are wonderful new additions. Chthonian Nightmare is for a generic and a black. You get an enchantment that when it enters, you get 3 energy. You can pay X energy, sacrifice a creature, return Chthonian Nightmare to your hand, return target creature card with mana value X from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. Static Prison is a 1 white enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. You get 2 energy. Beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may sacrifice Static Prison unless you pay an energy. It's pretty good. Basically, about 2 energy, 2 turns of exiling something your opponent has.
Mhm.
Now, like I said, the way this wins is just simple. It uses Grinding Station, it uses combat, it uses Children of Corliss and Praetor's Grasp to take people's win con. It'll take your opponent's, oh my gosh, it takes your opponent's Thassa's Oracle, and that's how it typically wins. This is a really amazing deck, and it's glad to see it doing well.
Yeah, very cool. Next up, we have Godo that actually won a major. So this took down the CCS Summer Showdown 10K. Yeah, I don't even really know what to say about that. That's just so surprising. We haven't seen Godo in the meta for so long. For those that aren't familiar, Godo is a 6 mana legendary 3/3 human barbarian. When it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for an equipment card and just put it on the battlefield and shuffle. And whenever Godo attacks for the first time each turn, untap it and all samurai you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Now, of course, this is going to go infinite if you have Helm of the Host, which at the beginning of which is an equipment. It's 4 mana equipment with equip 5. It's legendary, and at the beginning of combat, if you're on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except that token isn't legendary if the equipped creature is legendary, and that token gains haste. Now, if you are able to get this off while it's attached to Godo, you will get infinite combats and infinite hasty Godos, well, at least until all your opponents are dead. The way this deck works is, since it's in mono red, its main option is to just ramp out Godo as quickly as possible, or count to 11 in total so that you can ramp out Godo and then pay 5 mana for the equip cost. And most of these cards in this deck are going to be fast mana in some form or fashion, or they're going to be backup cards or removal. There isn't really too much else to the deck. As you can see, it's got a couple of silence effects with Conqueror's Flail and Defense Grid, and it's got like a couple of weird-ish artifacts in here, like there is Sting in here, and there is Argentum armor, so there's a couple of interesting equipments for the longer games. But most of what this deck is trying to do is just resolve Godo and win the game as fast as possible.
You know, we were speaking of the classics like Kalia, and then we get Godo winning. You know what's another classic? Yisan got 5th. You know, now I'm never going to hear the end of this from Chaos. If you guys haven't seen Yisan or don't know what it does, I suggest you check out our first episode ever where we covered Yisan in depth. But here's a little refresher. Yisan the Wandering Bard, for 2 generic and a green, you get a legendary creature, Human Rogue. For 2 generic and a green, you can tap, put a verse counter on Yisan Wandering Bard. You search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to the number of verse counters on Yisan. Put it onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. It's a 2/3. The way this deck works is it abuses the fact that you're able to go up all the way on Yisan, all the way to a Crater Hoof Behemoth, or even a Disciple of Freyerlies. That's a great new addition for Modern Horizons. For 3 generic and 3 green, you get an Elf Druid that when it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature, and if you do, you gain X life and draw X card, where X is that creature's power. It also is a flip. It's a land that enters the battlefield tapped unless you pay 3 life, and it has tap, add a green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fairly similar overall to Yeva. Like, I think a lot of the lines are similar as to how they actually close out the game.
It literally runs Yeva.
Yeah, yes, it also does just straight up run Yeva.
I think your Yeva was running him as well.
Yeah, the decks are very similar.
I'll be honest. Mono Green has a lot of these commanders where you could just switch certain legendaries around and you probably have the same deck. It's just about what you feel is better in the meta to have in your command zone and what's better to have in your deck. Now, this deck is amazing. It is, of course, running. Look at that. It's running Court of Calling. It's running Benefactor's Drought. It's running Ram Through. It's running the good stuff. But it's mostly going to win with just straight up combat. That's how this deck works. Going up the chain and beating down with the big brutes.
Oh, yeah. And last up, we have Essica, God of the Tree. Well, I'm sorry. Yes, that is not last. We have one more after this. Oh, God. Yeah.
I think she's best, though.
Sorry?
I think she's the best.
Essica is cool. So this is a 3 mana 1/4, so 1 green. It's got Vigilance. It's a legendary creature god, and it has tap, add 1 mana of any color, and other creatures you control have Vigilance and tap, add 1 mana of any color. So this is a 5-color list, and for some reason this thing is called Bird of Paradise Farm, which I thought was kind of funny. But I get why. It's basically turning your legendaries into mana dorks, but honestly, it's not running that many legendary creatures. So what we're actually trying to do is play the Prismatic Bridge. So this is a Wooburg enchantment, and it has at the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature or planeswalker card. Put that card on the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Aside from the creatures, really, it just kind of looks like this is a good stuff list. I
know what it is, Ganesh.
What?
This is how many Necropotences can we fit in a deck with Born Upon the Wind?
I was looking at that.
That's why they run her, because that way they always have triple black.
Other legendary, I don't see it.
Because what she does is she taps for 1 mana of any color, and she lets other legendaries do that. So every legendary you have, which you run 2, 3 others, including Ragavan and Lotho, but basically she lets you run those so you can play Necrodominance, Necropotence ad nauseum.
Okay. Yeah, because like all of these cards that I was seeing in the deck, they're like just generically good. Like this is like very close to what Kenrith decks used to look like before they changed to more activated ability focused.
I'll be honest, this could be Clam Chowder Sisay.
Yeah, this is also pretty close to Sisay lists. Yeah, so for those that aren't familiar, Necropotence and Necrodominance, you can pay life to put cards into your hand, but both of them actually go into your hand. They're both very similar cards. Both of them would only put the cards into your hand during the end step, but then they exile the cards out of your graveyard. So this is pretty detrimental for one, because they're in your end step. You can't actually play the cards right away. You have to wait on their turn. That was how the card was initially designed. And two, it exiles a card out of your graveyard, which is bad for Underworld Breach. However, there are two cards that synergize extremely well with both Necros. One is Final Fortune, which lets you just take an extra turn after this one. You will lose at the end of that turn. However, with Necropotence, you basically, if this resolves, you get to sculpt your perfect 7, and if you pay enough life into it, usually you'll win the game. Born Upon the Wind has arguably an even stronger synergy with both of those effects, where you can cast spells this turn as though you had Flash, because they will allow you to flash out every single card that you draw on that turn, and you don't have to discard down to 7 or 5, as is the case with Necro Dominance.
So you know what they're also on?
What?
They're on crop rotation with Emergence Zone with both Spirit Guides. So that way they can exile the Elvish, sack the land, get out the Emergence Zone, exile the Simian, crack it, second Born Upon the Wind.
Yeah. No, that's actually a really smart way to play the game, honestly. So, like, kudos to them for thinking this up. Honestly,
yeah, with so little time.
Yeah, like Asuka almost feels like a bait to me. Like, the only reason they're actually running this, it feels like, is because it's a legendary mana dork. Yeah, it's in 5 colors. I can't really see any other reason you would have this as your commander. They're not really doing anything with the Prismatic Bridge. None of these creatures here you're like super excited to cheat out and pay 5 mana for. They're all less than 5, and there aren't any Planeswalkers in the list, period. So this is literally a mana dork as the commander. Yeah. Anyway, we have one more deck we'd like to take a look at here.
Yeah, we got coming in right after Essica on that. Locus of Creation got lucky number 13 and just showed us just how many jelly beans fit in that jar. We got Sammy Johnson's Candy Shop by Flannel Shirts coming in with 4-color Omnath. Has 4 Sands Black, which is red, green, white, blue. Legendary creature elemental. When he enters the battlefield, draw a card. Landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. If this is the first time this ability resolved. If it's the second time, you add Omnath's CMC. If it's the third time, it deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. This is what I like to call, we got to get infinite mana, and we're just going to blink our commander. It's a very simple strategy. They're going to try to make infinite mana and blink their commander. That's all they're going to try to do with this deck. There's a lot of decks that do the same thing. Kenrith, Sisay, like, they don't normally have to blink their commander, but Omnath has when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. So when you blink that, you get another card. So that's why they're running Emil. They're running Dead-Eyed Navigator. Obviously, they're running Dockside, but they're also running, and I love this, they're running Song of Creation, which is 4. 1 generic and Tamir. It's an enchantment. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever you cast a spell, you draw 2 cards, and at the beginning of your end step, you discard your hand. This card is such an all-star. I'm so glad to see it being played in another deck, even if it is the Jelly Bean.
That card's really fun. It's just so Storm in a nutshell. Like, it's kind of non-deterministic, but once you start getting it going, it's really, really fun. Yeah. This is like almost Nas, honestly. You really just have to be able to play something to start it off. Like,
one of the best parts about this deck is Omnath resets every time he enters the battlefield. So if you're able to, I don't know, blink him and then start blinking your lands somehow, he gets to burn your opponent out.
Yeah, you can go infinite with like Deadeye, and then I'm sure there's loops with Eternal Witness. Let's see if there's the
they got the Eternal Witness. There's a crop rotation.
Yeah, there's a crop rotation.
There's a Blind Obedience. This deck just says infinite mana and I will win this game. Get me that infinite mana.
Yeah. And yeah, Omnath ETB is a card for you also whenever he comes down. So he's also an infinite outlet if you're...
Oh my gosh, they have a Dryad Arbor. That's how they do the infinite blinks on a land.
Oh yeah, that's really funny actually.
They use Emil to blink the Dryad Arbor, or they use Dead-Eye Navigator to blink it, and then they make infinite link shots, and then blink the Omnath. So for a 1 card draw, they deal 4 damage.
Yeah.
And that's why they're running crop rotation and Eldritch Evolution and Final Death. Like, they're running all these wonderful cards. They're obviously all good, but they also run Wargate because they need to spend that 3 mana to kill you with the Triad Armor. This deck is the spice.
This is cool. Yeah, it's also a Brace deck. It just also kind of looks like 4-color good, just really good things.
Yeah, this deck is strong all over. I'm not surprised it got 13th. I would be surprised if someone didn't pick this up and bring it into a tournament and do even better, or if Randy didn't take this to another tournament and win it.
Yeah, this is really good. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap us up for the news section. Coming up next is Kiki Jiki. All right, we are here with Corey, who also goes by MRC, repping Kiki Jiki. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been playing, what favorite decks you've had, your general location, that sort of thing.
Well, my name's Corey, or MRC, and MRC stands for Mono Red Corey, as my playgroup calls me. I've been playing Commander for about 3 years. I'm going to say cEDH for about 2.5. I got into it rather early. My absolute favorite deck is Kiki Jiki for sure. I've been playing him for just over 2 years now. I'm from Illinois, but I live in North Carolina currently. And I brought Kiki Jiki to the Boil and got 17th place out of 222 players. So just trying to give him a little bit more visibility. So
yeah, that's really good, especially for any monocolored commander. I think Magda is number 7 right now, but I think it's the only one that I can think of in the top 10 that's monocolored. But very impressive. Yeah,
I got a question. Like, so you went to the Boil, right? You had a great time. I know everybody had a great time there. Like, what were some of like the highlight matches, like people that you enjoyed playing against?
I would say my first seed or table was with Comedian. So I was like, oh, I'm playing with the big boys right away. I got to play against Ashani. It was really fun playing against him. And who else did I play against? Christian from the Ristic Buddies, super nice guy. Loved talking to him. And then the game that we went for a draw, I played with Wounded Satellite, and once again, like all of these creators are just amazing and very friendly people.
I love
really
Johnny. We drove in with him.
Okay.
Yeah, I was with him, Jacoby, and LJ, and that event was awesome. And I got a shout out to LJ and Jacoby, especially Jacoby. He top 16 there.
Congrats to him.
Yeah, but I'm like looking at your deck. I love it. Mono red. It's the dream, right? Like, this is what every professional player loves, right? Is to play mono red.
Yeah, there's nothing better.
So yeah, leads to the question of why play this deck?
Well, that's a really good question.
And
so if you
really quick, before we get too deep into the weeds, we should probably explain what Kiki Jiki does for those listening. This is a card that we used to see a lot, and it's kind of infamous for combos before cEDH, right? Like, what was it? I'm sure it's been seen played in a lot of forms. Go ahead.
Modern.
It
was in Modern. It was one of the alternates to Splinter Twin. It was in a little bit of Legacy, but mostly it has always been the Commander Boogeyman. This has always been the Birthing Pod Blood Moon WinCon. This is like a sub commander in so many different decks. So seeing him kind of being on his own is a very interesting. What he does, I'll let Mr. Corey take away what he does.
Well, all right. Kiki Jiki the Mirror Breaker. He's 2 generic and 3 red, so 5 total. He's a Goblin Shaman. He has haste, and he's a 2/2, but you can tap him to create a token that is a copy of target non-legendary creature you control, except it has haste, and you sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step.
Yeah. Okay. So nothing broken about that ability, right? Like, very, very balanced. But brings me back to that question. Why would you want to run this very balanced and fair and diverse commander?
Well, if you want to go turbo, I'm not saying it's Rogsai, but if you still like to go turbo in a monocolored deck that's a little bit cheaper on the mana base, and if you just like red, it's a deck you should definitely try out.
Right. So it's for the MR fans, mono reds.
Yes,
But it's
yes.
also, whereas Magda can win by turn 2, Kiki Jiki can probably, from what I'm looking at based on your cards there, do a turn 1 win actually every
Yes.
so often.
Very, very capable.
Yeah.
Very.
So
It's really consistent for turn 2, but very capable on turn 1.
So red is known as the turbo color, and this is kind of like not even like pretending to be anything other than turbo.
So I will say I did build it with some backup plans, and just with the style that I like to play, and expecting stacks. You'll notice some planeswalkers and a few other things that I'll get to a little bit later. But for the most part, it is turbo.
Okay. So, yes, let's go back to that original question. Why play Kiki Jiki? What makes this deck fun for you, and what drew you to it overall?
So what's basically fun about it is comboing very quickly, having those explosive starts, which you got to mulligan aggressively for. But yeah, there's nothing better than having an explosive red hand and comboing off immediately or setting up for turn 2. It's very fun to do that. And what kind of brought me on to it was I had a Zurzoth deck, which I would say is my first high-powered deck. But I had a friend who was playing Trazyn the Infinite, which was a 1-card win combo with Buried Alive, I believe it is.
Yeah.
And we just kept losing turn 2, 3 consistently to him, and there was really nothing anybody can do. And I kind of talked to him, and I was like, "Hey, I would like to, try to, compete with you." And he's like, "Absolutely, man." He's like, let's see what we can find. And I was like, I like mono red, and I think I found something. I knew nothing about Kiki Jiki at the time, and just kind of looked up some combos, and I was like, all right, I think this is it. And then finally I started competing with him and started beating him a little bit. But the deck was definitely not tuned at the time. It took me a little bit to get more consistent. But that took me quite a bit of time, but I finally think I got a good version for me.
Nice. Okay, so why don't you talk to us a little bit about what Kiki Jiki's general game plan is?
So his general game plan is to combo off rather quickly. As we all know, Kiki has many different combos. If you don't mind, I can kind of point out a few.
Yeah, go right.
So I'll name off a few here. I have plenty, but there's Coercive Recruiter, which is 4 generic and 1 red. It's a 4/3. Whenever Coercive Recruiter or another pirate enters the battlefield under your control, gain control of target creature until end of turn, untap that creature. It has haste and becomes a pirate. So basically the combo with Coercive Recruiter and as well as Zealous Conscripts, which essentially does the same thing, is you just target your own Kiki Jiki to untap him, make another token that has haste, and rinse repeat for infinite tokens that have haste you can swing out with. Other combos, go ahead.
Notably, Coercive Recruiter is also a pirate.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
So as you make more copies, they all have that ETB trigger available wherever a pirate enters. So you will keep gaining control of more things.
Yes, absolutely. There's also Combat Celebrant and Port Raiser. Combat Celebrant's 2 and a red, a 4/1. If it has not been exerted this turn, you may exert it as it attacks. When you do, untap all other creatures you control, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So with Combat Celebrant, you can basically make infinite combats with Kiki Jiki and Combat Celebrant. And then with Port Raiser is 3 generic, 2 red, 4/4. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you untap each creature you control. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase. Port Raiser cannot attack a player it has already attacked this turn. So with Port Raiser, each time you make a new version of it, a new token, it does not see that previous effect from the other ones. So you can swing out with that fresh new one. So those are the two that not necessarily require combat damage, but it's a little bit more vulnerable when you are attacking.
Okay. Okay, that definitely makes a ton of sense. I think we see what's going on here.
Yes.
So that kind of answers one question, which was how does this deck combo win? But
yeah.
I do notice you have a Dualcaster Mage.
Yes. There are a few other combos that are a little bit harder to see. Dualcaster Mage is, not necessarily one of them. People are aware of that combo, but I have yes, there is a Godo as well. But Dualcaster, whenever he enters the battlefield, he does have flash, but whenever he enters the battlefield, he can copy target instant or sorcery. So if you have Heat Shimmer, Molten Duplication, or Twin Flame on the stack, you can flash him in to copy it and continuously make new ones with haste that will swing out for game. Godo, of course, with Helm of the Host. I do run Magnetic Theft in here, but I am not on Hammer of Nizan currently. So there's... go ahead.
Really quick, just so people are aware, Dualcaster Mage is a 1 red flash 2/2 human wizard. When it enters the battlefield, copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. And Molten Duplication is a sorcery that creates a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. And it gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning next end step. Basically, those two cards will create you infinite Dualcaster Mages with haste, as long as you hold priority on the Molten Duplication and you flash in the Dualcaster Mage, have that ETB target that sorcery, and get the new copy, have the new copy target the original Molten Duplication, and so on. Same for Twin Flame, and there's one other card that it is in here. Yeah, so Heat Shimmer too.
Then we got good old Godo combo. Godo is Godo, the Bandit Warlord, is 5 mana and a red. When he enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an equipment card, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle. When Godo attacks for the first time each turn, untap it and all samurai control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Combine that with a little old card called Helm of the Host, or 4 generic. It's a legendary artifact equipment. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except that token isn't a legendary. If equipped creature is a legendary, that token gains haste and has equipped for 5. And he's running Magnetic Theft, which is 1 generic red instant, attach target equipment to target creature, which allows him for the good old 7 mana. Godo's great for addition. Godo was what? Count to 11?
Yes.
Is how Godo wins. All you need to be able to do is count to 11. If you can do that, great. If not, maybe play Yu-Gi-Oh! And what happens is Godo, when he enters, will grab the Helm of Awakening, then for 5 mana or for 1 red with Magnetic Theft, he'll equip it to himself. He'll enter combat, create a hasty token that's a non-legendary, which will attack and create another combat step and rinse and repeat until people are dead.
Right. Okay. Yeah, there are a bunch more combos. Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah.
There's also Bergie with Grinning Ignis.
So that's why you have impact trimmers.
Yes, and on top of that, if for some reason all of my creatures come in tapped from stacks pieces, Impact Tremors, Perforos, and Goblin Bombardment can help me get around that without having to swing.
Also, notably with Kiki Jiki, it does have sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. So with Goblin Bombardment and Impact Trimmers, if someone's under the 1 ring protection, you can do it during their upkeep.
Yes.
So for
let's go ahead and read off.
Yeah, we should probably, if you want to take it, Corey, you can just let us know what Goblin Bombardment and Impact Tremors actually does.
Absolutely. So Goblin Bombardment's 1 in a red enchantment. You can sacrifice a creature, and Goblin Bombardment deals 1 damage to any target.
Mm-hmm.
Impact Tremors, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Impact Tremor deals 1 damage to each opponent. And then another one that I forgot to mention is Outpost Siege. This one's a little bit, people don't see it as often, but if you choose the mode Dragons, whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, deal 1 damage to target creature or player. And then Perforos, of course, is another outlet for infinite damage with infinite tokens. Perforos, as long as your devotion is less than 5, he isn't a creature, but whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you deal 2 damage to each opponent.
Okay. Yeah, so what other combos are there in this deck? So, of course, when you see Kiki Jiki, you think Dell's Conscripts, Effect the Coercive Recruiter, the Port Raiser, they all kind of fill that same kind of niche as something that you can copy a lot because they untap things or they make more combats. And we know about Godo. Yeah, so what else is in here besides the Dualcaster and the Godo and the Conscripts?
So a sleeper in my deck, I would say, is Fanatic of Mogus. What he does, he's 3 in a red. Whenever he enters the battlefield, he deals damage to each opponent equal to your devotion to red.
Mm-hmm.
This card here deals a whole lot more damage than what people originally think. A lot of my play group and local tournaments that I play in, people will be like, oh, we're going to get hit for 4 or 5, and then 17 damage later, they're like, oh, wow. And I'm like, yes, we can deal a lot of damage with Fanatic Amogus. And then we have some large spells, but in mono red, you can really pump out some mana. I've got Apex of Power and Dance with Calamity. They're not really combos, but they get you some insane value. Apex of Power is 7 generic and 3 red for a sorcery. You exile the top 7 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast non-land cards exiled this way, and you get to add 10 mana of any color. And Dance with Calamity is your red ad nause in a way. It's 7 in a red. Shuffle your library as many times as you choose. You may shuffle your library as many times as you choose. You may exile the top card of your library. If the total mana value is 13 or less, you may cast any number of those spells without paying their mana cost. 2 really good cards that people are not expecting you to cast, but Jessica's Will, Seething Song, all your red rituals can really help you get up to that mana rather easily. And then lastly, we have Fable of the Mirror Breaker and Underworld Breach. So Fable alone is insane value and actually can combo with Combat Celebrant as long as it gets flipped. This one is 2 in a red for Enchantment Saga. You create a 2/2 Goblin Shaman that whenever it attacks, you create a treasure token. Step 2, you may discard up to 2 cards and draw that many cards. And then step 3, you exile it and return it transformed to the battlefield. It's going to let me flip it over here. There we go. It becomes a reflection of Kiki Jiki, where you can pay a red and tap him. He does not have haste. That is important. You create a token that's a copy of another target non-legendary creature you control, except it has haste, and sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. You can just make new tokens of Combat Celebrant that have haste, and as long as you have your token that can attack in that extra combat, you can make the mana to refresh that one over and over and over again. A little bit more of an obscure combo.
Yeah, how are you getting the mana? So wait, so you have Combat Celebrant and Reflection, but then how are you getting the one?
That Goblin Shaman that you make off of the first part of the saga.
Makes a treasure every time.
I see.
And you keep swinging with that, and you can untap, and that's another very obscure combo that not many people see.
Oh,
and I don't know if I need to say it, but Underworld Breach kind of explains itself. Yeah. So there's a few more obscure combos in here because Kiki Jiki is, like you guys said, is kind of the boogeyman. A lot of people know about him.
Okay. I'm trying to look through and see if I can pick out any other combos. Is there a line with Goblin Matron? Like, can you tutor something and tutor something again? Does that get you anything?
So I do have a fair bit of goblins in here. It's mainly for dockside, but I do have a few other cards in here that can potentially do some things. Sardian Avenger is another sleeper card, I believe, in the deck. It does a lot more than what people might think at first glance. What Sardian Avenger does is it's 1 and a red for a 1/1. It has first strike and trample. Whenever it attacks, it gets plus X plus 0 until end of turn, where X is the number of artifacts your opponents control. Whenever an artifact an opponent controls is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, this deals 1 damage to that player. I have made, I had this on the battlefield, made a copy with Kiki Jiki, and have killed 2 people in 1 turn because of the amount of artifacts that were on the battlefield.
Wow.
It gets pretty crazy. A lot of people don't expect that. And then we got the Skirk Prospector for a little bit of extra mana, and Skirk Prospector I've only had in Kiki for about a year or so, but placing him in here to sacrifice my dockside with copy spells on the stack has become very important to stop other people from comboing off with my dockside.
Also, I guess it gives you a little insurance against like Tishana's on your Kiki Jiki.
Yes, that is very true. Yes, that way I can get him out of a bind and be able to cast him again. And then lastly, we have Treasure Nabber, which my play group at first thought it was a joke, and then they realized the power of it. But Treasure Nabber is 2 and a red. Whenever an opponent taps an artifact for mana, gain control of that artifact until the end of your next turn. That allows me to get even more mana to easily get to my 8 to 10 mana to combo off with Kiki and my respective other combo pieces.
And there's one more card that I thought was kind of interesting, Runaway Steamkin. Why is that in the deck?
So that is a very good ritual. That once again, that's another thing that some people in my play group have noticed. But you get those 3 counters on them. You remove 3 and you gain 3. You got more spells to cast in your hand, especially after a wheel or 2. You just keep getting that mana back and back and back. Runaway Steamkin can combo off with Grinning Igneous.
So Runaway Steamkin is 1 and a red for a 1/1 elemental, and whenever you cast a red spell, if it had fewer than 3 +1/+1 counters on it, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and you can remove 3 +1/+1 counters from it to add triple red. This is kind of a stormy card, right? Like
Igneous and Berkey.
Oh, I think we did. We did talk about that one a little bit.
We actually never went over them.
So for Grinning Igneous, he's 2 and a red. For an elemental, that's a 2/2. You can pay a red to return Grinning Igneous to its owner's hand. You add 2 generic and a red, so its casting costs, back to your mana pool, and you play this ability only anytime you could play a sorcery. And then Bergie, of course. She is a 2 generic and a red for a legendary creature god. She's a 3/3. Whenever you cast a spell, you add red until end of turn. You don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. And the bottom part is pretty much irrelevant.
Yeah, no, we don't. No one cares.
So basically, if I have Impact Tremors, Perforos, and Outpost Siege, anything like that, and Grinning Igneous and Bergie on the battlefield, I can cast Grinning Igneous, gain that 1 red mana from Bergie to activate Grinning Igneous's ability, return it to my hand, get the casting cost, recast to trigger one of our effects, either ETB or leaving the battlefield to do the damage. And that will create a infinite storm loop, as long as I have an outlet, of course, to deal damage to the table.
Does this also
that with Runaway?
Yes, it also combos with Runaway Steamkin. Just need to make sure that we have enough mana to get the loop started.
But would this plus Ruby Medallion be infinite, or do you run out of? No, I think this does go.
Ruby Medallion would definitely help out. You don't necessarily need it, but it would just reduce the amount of mana required to get the loop started.
Also, Ruby Medallion would make this net mana. With Bergie, Grinning Igneous is just mana neutral.
I mean, like if you just had Steamkin and Ruby Medallion out, that would go infinite, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just
The thing
checking.
is,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I
because
was just curious about that. Okay. I think
old combo.
gone through all the combos at least I can see. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about how this deck specifically functions in the early game? Like, I know we had like a good general idea of your game plan, but now let's dive in a little deeper. And what do your mulligans look like? What are you trying to do on turns 1 through 3 exactly?
So for mulligans are the most important part of this deck, and I actually found that out during the boil, and which is why I think it went so well for me. Is it just clicked. So basically, what you want in your hand is, of course, a combo piece and mana. I know that sounds pretty straightforward, but if you get a Treasonous Ogre in your hand and you have one land, there is a lot of things that will get you the mana to cast the Treasonous Ogre. When you're playing red, it's always going to be a gamble, but you got to have that mana. You got to get that combo. We don't have that much card draw. We do have some wheels, but that is the general game plan for the early game, is to get that mana and that combo piece in your mulligan. We try not to go lower than 5, but if we do, there's some other game plans we can go with like getting a Ragavan, getting some mana rocks on the battlefield to try and hit one of our big spells. So it's basically mulligan aggressively to get the proper cards in hand. And I know that sounds very generic, but it is very important for this deck.
So for those that aren't familiar with Treasonous Ogre, it is 3 generic and a red mana for a 2/3 Ogre Shaman. It has Dethrone, but I don't think anyone cares about that with Treasonous Ogre.
Yes, it's so important. It's the key. It's the key effect, right?
Yeah, so whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Yeah, no one ever does that. The important thing is that you can pay 3 life and add a red mana to your mana pool. And since in Commander, this card was not designed with, Conspiracy, yeah, well, I don't think it was exactly designed with Commander in mind, because in Commander you have 40 life and you can pay, 13 times technically?
Yes.
Into 13 mana?
That's a normal amount on turn 1, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I've done that far too many times.
Oh god, yeah.
Why do mono red decks always have expensive lines? They can afford it.
Yeah, that's kind of nuts. Yeah, I've lost a couple times to people getting out like a turn 1 Treasonous Ogre, and then they get out like a Tali, and then that gets them more cards for some godforsaken reason. They have, yeah.
You lost to Atali? I've been playing cEDH for quite a while. I have lost so many games against Godo that Treasonous Ogre is just the numero uno problem of all time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, look, I have a Pact of Negation. I have no mana, but that's a Treasonous Ogre. Well, losing if that resolves. This might be a draw if it doesn't.
I think we may have to take a little bit of the spotlight away from Treasonous Ogre. Otherwise, I'm going to start getting attacked over the Adnaz player.
Yeah, you deserve it. Yeah. Adnaz can whiff. Treasonous Ogre, you're not doing that unless you have it.
No.
Yeah.
So I guess your early game is, your mulligans at least are going to look like 90% of the time it's going to be fast mana into some sort of either combo or like crazy payoff is what you're looking for.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. I mean, that's not too difficult of a thing to mulligan. I guess really what kind of hurts is when you're getting to the lower mulligans and when you're looking for these weirder hands, like trying to power out maybe like a Magus of the Wheel or Wheel of Fortune maybe, or you're trying to do something with Jessica's Will even.
There is one backup plan if the mulligans do not go properly. Things that you want to reach out for, especially in cEDH, is Magus of the Moon and Blood Moon.
Yeah.
Magus of the Moon is a 2 generic and a red human wizard. That's a 2/2, and it says that non-basic lands are mountains, and Blood Moon costs the same exact amount, but is an enchantment that does the same exact thing as Magus of the Moon.
Right.
Fun interactions. We have, if they play a Blood Moon and someone has an Urza Saga, the Urza Saga will immediately sack itself when the Blood Moon touches down.
Yes,
Because
yes.
it'll lose all effects. And the reason that happens is it's still a saga, and sagas have a condition that once they have completed their last ability, they are sacked. And it'll treat it as it has no actual chapters, so the chapters are completed.
Exactly. Any Urza Saga, yep.
It is such a little fun little what's the term? Game mechanic. It's especially fun the first time you find out about it, especially if you're the one that blood moons.
Yeah,
Okay.
I found that out the hard way myself.
Yeah, I noticed you had the saga.
Yep.
Layers give me a headache, man. I did some of that judge program a little bit a while ago, and I stopped at layers. It was just a headache.
Yeah,
I might go
Layers.
back and finish it sometime though.
It's so much fun. Judge Academy is defunct, if I remember correctly. So now you just gotta like actually read up on this stuff. But that's a good thing to use the Blood Moon. You're on like every ritual, so I guess early game, like it's either you get the mana in the combo piece or you look to just make it a slower game. Because like again, you have your combo in the command zone. This is the great thing about running A and B combo with one part in the command zone is you can literally just wait.
Yep.
Like, and I see like that's kind of like your mid game. If you don't win on turn 1 and turn 2, you're going into the mid game, and that's when you got little Koth here.
Yes. I would absolutely love to highlight both Koths. They are very underrated in my opinion. I understand Planeswalkers are not the best in cEDH, but huge fan. Do you mind if I cover these ones for?
No, I am already ready for you to cover them. I got back into I started playing Magic in like the 90s when I was like in elementary school. I got into like Dominaria and stuff.
Okay.
Time Spiral, and then I stopped, and I came back for right as World Awake happened, and we went into Scars of Mirrodin was basically where I broke my bank because, and I played a mono red aggro deck in that format with Koth.
Love it. Yeah, he is by far my favorite Planeswalker. By far, he is absolutely amazing. So Koth here, we'll do Koth of the Hammer first. He's 2 generic and 2 red. He's a Planeswalker. His +1 is untap target mountain. It becomes a 4/4 red elemental creature until end of turn. It's still a land. His -2 is you add red for each mountain you control. And then his -5 is you get an emblem with mountains you control have tap. This land deals 1 damage to any target. And he starts out with 3 loyalty. A lot of people underestimate the -2 and the -5. Obviously, the +1 is important to get to those, but the -2 hits for a lot more than what people think. And because I am also running a Sword of the Animist, which I've had a lot of people tell me to cut, but in a combat-based deck, it is actually rather good to keep that card in the deck. But the -5 also, if I get that off with, of course, getting out a bunch of lands, I can really control the board. You're in mono red. It's very easy to turn 1 Koth of the Hammer very easily.
Right. Okay. So question about this card. So you get it down quickly. Is the goal usually to get that emblem, or is it mostly a ritual for you?
If you get it out early, then you want to get your emblem.
Right.
You definitely want to get your emblem. But yes, it's 3 turns, yes, and I know that's a little slow. I'm not running Voltaic Charge for like Proliferate or anything, but getting out fast is usually very helpful. But if you get it late game, then you pay 4 to -2 it for, depending on how many basics you have, of course, basic mountains. Or if you have a Blood Moon out, that'll just ramp it up even more. You do that to get a burst of mana.
And even the +1 untaps the mountain.
Yes, yes. Which is
Yeah.
and a 4/4 is no joke. When
So
you're
it
trying to
ramps you
compete
1
for.
mana just with the plus.
Yes,
Like
yes.
so, like getting it to pump up to the 5 and emblem unit is not that unreasonable because at no point are you missing mana off it.
No.
You're increasing by 1 every turn. Uh,
Yes.
you clearly didn't have a better thing to do, so it's very good. But I feel like Grandpa Koth is a little bit harder to emblem.
Yes, yes. I will say that, but I've had these two in the deck since day one of me playing Kiki Jiki, or well, I should say, as soon as Kothfire of Resistance came out, I slapped them in there. But the original one has been in there sooner. Kothfire of Resistance, I'll go over this one. He's also 2 generic and 2 red Planeswalker. His +2 ability is to search your library for a basic mountain, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. His -3 deals damage to target creature equal to the number of mountains you control. And his emblem is -7. You get an emblem with whenever a mountain enters the battlefield under your control. This emblem deals 4 damage to any target, and he starts out with 4 loyalty. This one is, I would say, the better one to get out. They're both really good to get out early, but getting this one out early, people just swing at it, but you're +2 every time, and you just keep thinning your deck of your basic lands, and your top decks in mono red, which is very important because you don't have much draw, just become better and better and better. And that emblem is no joke either if you get that off.
Yeah. The emblem, yeah. Whenever if you get every time you play a mountain, you deal 4 damage or something. That is really
Any
good. Like that's
target?
going to kill people's commanders and all sorts of stuff.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Hey, remember when people complained about Valakut?
Yeah, this is the one to complain about now, that's for sure.
Such an interesting thing. So I guess those are good backups if it's going to mid game.
Yeah.
Obviously, Perforos is really good in the mid game as well, because eventually you might be able to swing with it. But you can also, have you done the pump?
I have done the pump, and I've had to do that several times against the Trazen the Infinite player. I've actually pumped, what was it? Because I had no cards in hand, I believe 4 times to get exact lethal to kill him before he was going to pop off next turn.
Oh wow.
I've made a ridiculous amount of mana in this deck. Turn 1, turn 2. It's not uncommon for me to get an Apex of Power out turn 2. I've never turn 1'd it, but I've turned to it multiple times in tournaments as well too. So
Nice. Yeah, 10 mana
yeah.
on turn 2 is kind of nuts.
Oh yeah, that's why I love this deck. It can really, really.
Calamity is so good.
Yes, it is. It is so good. I'm so happy that card got printed.
Because I think a lot of people misread that because they were like, oh, like, I guess if you hit exactly 13, then the cards are free. It's like, no. It says 13 or less. So as long as it's under 13, those cards are free.
Yep. You just hit anything you want. If it's good enough, go ahead and stop right there.
So the cool thing with this card is I think people don't remember is that you can, if you have a card that lets you look at the top of your library, that's a static ability. You can do that as you're doing this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So, like,
okay.
yeah, so you can basically go like, that's over 13. We'll stop here.
Huh. You're giving me some ideas here. Okay. Okay. I like that. I like that.
That's one of those fun things that like I'm like, people forget that's not a trigger, that's not an ability, that's just a static thing that's out there.
Anytime you can.
Yeah,
Yep.
you don't need priority for it. You just do it.
Okay. All right, I see you. I see you.
All right.
I noticed you got like Fury for board clear. Fury, for those of you who don't know, who have been under a rock for the last year, is 3 generic and 2 red. Creature Elemental Incarnation, double strike. Yeah, that's clearly the important part of that. When Fury enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and/or walkers. And then it has Evoke, exile a red card from your hand. Evoke lets you pay it for an alternate mana cost, which will be exiling it from your hand, exiling a red card from your hand. And then when it enters the battlefield, it has immediately sacrifice this creature as a trigger, and you can stack the ETB. That'll be its ETB. but it has another ATB, so you can stack those however you want. So if you want that on the field for some reason, as it's popping things, you can, or if you don't have to. You can sack it first and then have the damage resolve. And then it's a 3/3, so it deals 6 damage when it hits a player. It's pretty good, but more importantly, it is just good. But I imagine during your mid game, you are just trying to remove people's combo pieces while trying to deal as much damage as you can to make sure that they can't get through. I imagine Professional Facebreaker helps out a lot during the mid game.
Professional Facebreaker is absolutely insane in a combo deck, and I was not running that card for a little bit of time and finally slapped it in, and that has definitely increased the power of my deck by far. We run some decently low to the ground creatures, and we get enough mana to cast the big ones too. So if you play a Forbidden Orchard and you give me a 1/1, you best bet I'm going to be using that 1/1.
Professional Facebreaker is 2 generic and a red for a human warrior with Menace. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure. More importantly, you can sacrifice a treasure, my bad. Exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So with Dockside, it's basically just you can pay mana to exile cards from the top of your library. Except it's not paying mana, it's just sacking the treasure. But more importantly, when you copy this, each one of those, whenever you deal damage, will trigger.
Absolutely.
It's one of those things that I ran Pirates. Pirates runs a lot of clones. I have never lost a game where when I had 2 professional Facebreakers. Ever. Professional Facebreaker is really good at 1. Amazingly, if you have multiples, making 3 treasures, but attacking 3 different people to make 9, for some reason people can't handle that. It's just one of those weird like mats.
I used to run that card in Blue Farm, and it was really solid. And sometimes they want to throw it back in. Honestly, it's just so good.
I got to be honest. It's hard to decide between that and the 4-drop version. What is it?
Grim
Hireling. There we go. Not the Warlock. The
Yeah.
Tiefling Rogue.
Yeah, that card used to be run 2, but out of the 2, I think you'd probably want Facebreaker and specifically Blue Farm because it's only 3 mana.
But I noticed that so much of your deck has all these like take control of, untappers, make clones. How many times have you won with your opponent's cards?
So I have an Atali player in my group, and
oh no.
Yes. So both of our decks feed off of each other very well, and I have won off of his Court of Calling multiple times. And if he's ever watching this, though, he's won off of my combos plenty of times as well. I'm definitely gonna mention that. But for the most part, people actually don't. They think I'm gonna take their creatures, but I'm just going to target my own Kiki Jiki, which a lot of people haven't seen that. They don't see it when I've used that to my advantage. So it's usually more of my own cards, but I have won with theirs a few times. Not as much as you might think, because like I said, a lot of people are like, "What are you going to steal?" And I'm like, "I'm not going to steal anything. I'm just going to untap my Kiki Jiki and do it again and again and again."
Now, normally we'd ask, how does this function in the late game? But I feel like your mid game is your late game. Like, because again, this is a turbo deck, so like your plan doesn't change at any point in time. It is to get Kiki Jiki or to kill people with like cloth emblems or just combats. Well, I mean, even with Kiki Jiki, it's mostly just combats. So like, it feels like for like some people, their late game, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna grind them up and build up enough resistance. For you, it's like, I am just attacking. Hopefully, you will die along the way, or I will Kiki Jiki.
Yep.
Okay, so what are you doing in the late game with this deck? So I know it's probably kind of rough. Like, this is definitely more early to mid game focused deck. If it goes past turn 10, are you just kind of sitting there hoping for like a wheel or a Dance with the Calamity Apex of Power, basically, or is there something else you're trying to do?
I'm basically waiting for Underworld Breach Dance with Calamity, Apex of Power. Or what I'm trying to do with Kiki Jiki is, let's say they've stopped a lot of my combo pieces. I'm still trying to be using Kiki Jiki to do that professional Facebreaker copy, do that Sardian Avenger copy, Fanatica Mogus, and those sorts of things to, deal damage, but most importantly, remove their creatures. I do tend to try and hard cast Fury more often than I do the evoke cost, but if there's things I need to get rid of, I will evoke it out. But wheels are my best friend late game for sure.
Yeah, I can see that.
This looks like its late game is just super grindy. I imagine Outpost Siege just completely depends on when you draw it, whether you go with that top or that bottom.
That is very true. I will say 90% of the time I'm choosing dragons because, like I said, it's going to be a lot of mana and a lot of combo pieces. So chances of me getting those cards are more likely, but if I'm running behind, I don't have much of a board state, I will choose cons. But I have chose cons before, regretting that decision when my one of my many combo pieces comes up. So it is mostly dragons.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I guess that makes a ton of sense for the late game. Yeah, it's probably just kind of a little bit rough, just the way the deck is built. But yeah, anyway.
Using that rolling vortex to basically penalize everybody.
That is the one card that
I was like, I was like, I imagine late game, this is the nightmare scenario. This is like seeing like the Italian player drop down to Shieldred.
Yes.
Yeah.
This rolling vortex is the one card that stops Underworld Breach lines free. I mean, obviously everything free. So I'll read it off to everybody, but it's 1 generic and a red, so 2 total mana. It's an enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, it deals 1 damage to them. Whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast that spell, Rolling Vortex deals 5 damage to that player. And you can pay a red. Your opponents can't gain life this turn. One of the most important things that people don't realize, if no mana was spent to cast this spell, if you do life, if you do whatever you possibly can outside of not spending mana, you're going to get hit with 5 more.
Mm-hmm.
And your Underworld Breach lines with LED and stuff. I have stopped. It was at Atomic Empire. A blue farm player took 17 damage from my Rolling Vortex, and then I had my Goblin Bombardment out, and I sacked all 4 of my creatures to kill them with Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation on the stack.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I think the best part about this is what Force of Will.
Yeah, right.
yeah. Take that 5. Can you afford that?
Yeah. If you get this out early, people are not gonna want to play their mana rocks. They're probably still going to, but that fast mana is gonna hurt, and it's gonna hurt real bad.
So bad. I imagine you're a Tali player. This is the nightmare card.
Yes, 100%. He hates seeing that card, and if I can get it out early, I 100% will.
Just that. Look, your whole deck. No. Take 20. Want to do it again? I dare you. Double dog. Look at that. You got a Shieldred. That's cool. Draw a card. I'd like to gain 2 life. I'll pay a red.
Yep.
No. We're in this nightmare together. Welcome to the late game, folks. We could have ended this on turn 1, but no, someone had to stop me. Now you're in Rolling Vortex. Welcome to Lagash. So I guess I gotta ask you, so we've gone over the mid, early, late of this deck. So if you had to describe what this deck's strengths are, where does it excel compared to other decks?
It excels in the turbo game. It definitely excels there. Being in a monocolored deck, which a lot of people think is bad, but my personal experience is I am probably biased, but I don't need to mana fix. If I want to get a Jessica's Will out early, I can easily, because most of my lands are going to tap for red. And if I control my commander and I get those 3 other cards, chances are I'm going to have the actual red mana to cast those spells. So that is my the biggest strength of this deck is being turbo and having the mana obviously all be one color, to make math, to make fetching, everything easier, and allowing my blood moon effects to really hurt those expensive mana bases.
Right.
That is the strength of monocolored. It's a little bit more stable and with a little bit less variance.
Yes.
It's like the more colors you have, it's like you're trying to walk across like a river. It's like, yeah, a bridge is really nice. Loose stones are not. You could do it, but there is a chance every draw step you're gonna slip up and not get what you need. Whereas with monocolors, you just I just need a mana rock and a mountain.
Yep, exactly.
It doesn't even have to be a mountain. It could be a Den of the Bugbear, or it could be this new card I see that you added from Modern Horizons 3.
Absolutely.
Arena of Glory. Arena of Glory enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a mountain. You can tap, add a red, or you can tap it, add 2 red, and this mana is spent on a creature spell. It gains haste until end of turn. Oh my goodness.
Oh yes. Oh yes. This card was by far my favorite card of the set. I immediately slapped it in, and I was actually proxying it before with my play group to test it out. A lot of my stuff I can easily get off with haste, but having 2 port raisers able to attack at the same time, 2 combat celebrants, the original Godo, professional facebreaker, the list goes on. Allowing me to have the token and the original attack makes it so much easier for me to combo off with my combat damage or attack trigger creatures.
Lets you do Mages to the Wheel if you have just mana but no cards.
Exactly. The opportunities are endless for this card in this deck. It is definitely going to help out Kiki Jiki a lot, and I was very excited to see it.
So its strength is that it's just very resilient, very stable with its mana base, and it's very fast.
Yes,
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean that just makes perfect sense when you think about Kiki Jiki in general. Yeah. So, what are some of the weaknesses? What are some of the problems you've run into when playing this deck? Now, I'm sure that just things getting to the mid game and late game is a general problem of most turbo decks. So, what are some other things that you've run into that have been kind of rough?
So there's specific stacks that really hurt me. I believe it's Lavinia, the Azorius commander, that you can't cast spells that the CMC is greater than the number of lands you control.
And no free
non-creature spells.
And no free spells. Yep. And
notably, you can't cast non-creature spells.
Yes.
Right.
So using my rituals to get into certain things definitely becomes harder. Any cursed totem effects or having my creatures come in tapped hurt this deck quite a bit. And then, as we've mentioned before, my deck feels Atali very well. And when my friend built Atali and started playing, he was kicking our butts. And my deck was definitely helping him do so.
I think I just realized what you mean by that. Your deck's biggest weakness is the cards are so good that other people definitely are.
Yep. He can take my Treasonous Ogre. He can take my Coercive Recruiter. He can take any one of my Molten Duplication, Heat Shimmers, Jessica's Will, you name it. If he hits,
I imagine Mnemonic is a nightmare versus you.
Yes. Mnemonic also. Thank you for mentioning that. Yep. I got a lot of rituals, and Mnemonic, I believe, allows you to cast the spells with any mana.
Yes.
Yep.
I give Mnemonic Betrayal players a lot of mana to cast everything else. So yes, that is definitely another weakness. I actually just experienced that this past weekend.
Okay. So blind obedience effects probably also hurt you a bit because your stuff's going to come in tapped. I imagine you don't like to see Rule of Law. You don't like to see your artifacts shut off because you're running a ton of them.
Dockside gets a hell of a meal versus him.
What'd you say?
Dockside makes hell of bank versus this guy.
Yeah.
So much money.
Yeah, your
Dockside.
opponent's Docksides are going to make a good amount of mana, huh?
Yes, they definitely
Yeah.
are. There is times where
Fast.
I can combo off just off my rituals, which is nice. Like if I, Rite of Flame, Desperate Ritual, Seething Song into Jessica's Will, which I have done plenty of times. I must say it's very nice to ritual into ritual into ritual, not having to use my artifacts. But we're in mono red. We're not in green or anything like that. So artifacts are definitely a big part of our going fast plan.
Okay, Sonic.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
this is also a commander-centric deck, so I imagine Dranith is the nightmare.
oh God, yeah.
Yes, but we have some very specific cards to deal with Dranith.
You know, I was going to ask, have you tried playing Claim the Firstborn?
I have not tried and claim the Firstborn, but that is definitely a definitely good option right now. Rending Valley and Lithomatic Barrage are my best friends against my enemy white-blue creatures. Rending Valley is 1 red mana instant. It cannot be countered by spells or abilities, and it deals 4 damage to target white or blue creature. Lithomatic Barrage is a 1 red sorcery. This spell also cannot be countered, and it deals 1 damage to target creature or planeswalker. It deals 5 damage instead if that target is white and or blue.
Yeah.
There's other ones like a Braid and Chaos Warp and such, but Lightning Bolt, of course, but those ones are really hard to stop and can really take care of Dranith, because Dranith up against a red deck is always scary because of exile, casting cards from exile.
Right.
Yeah, that does seem like the thing. So I'm looking into that. Go for it.
I imagine other turbo decks are also a weakness for you. Like if you're mulling and you don't get a great opener, and there's just another turbo deck at the table that does, that's probably really rough for this deck to deal with.
Yes, it definitely is, and that's why the Blood Moon and or Max of the Moon are also the backup plan. That is what I've realized, because I've gotten a pretty decent amount of experience against Rogsai, which does not run any basics. So if I were to get out one of those, relatively fastly, it can really shut down those. I believe it's the Tainted Pact mana bases, because if you hit the same lands, then you are forced to stop, I believe.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my, if it's not going my way, then it's kind of, time to go to plan B and get those Blood Moon effects in play.
Yeah.
Right.
And unfortunately, since this is a monocolored deck, it is what we like to refer to as a parasitic game plan.
Yes.
To our viewers who may not know what that is, that's a phrase that we use in Commander to refer to players that are not going to interact. You do not anticipate this person to be like, oh, that person played that spell, I got this. No, that's not what this deck's gonna do. Do not look at them in the counter ward. It would be like, oh yeah, nah, dude, I got that. I'll stop the ad. No. This deck's gonna be like, bro, why are you looking at me? Mono red.
Yep.
Oh, don't even look at this corner of the map.
I can protect my own combos, and that's about it.
I'm surprised you're not on Tybalt's Trickery.
I actually used to be on Tybalt's Trickery, and
did you flip the food chain like I did?
So the list is definitely getting a bit tight for me, and I actually took out Tybalt's Trickery for, I believe it was Gut Shot, just with Orcish Bowmaster and using my Pyroblast and my Red Elemental Blast to help defend instead of 2 mana. Kind of decision making. Yeah,
I'll be honest, Ganesh. You only need to flip over 1 combo piece with Tybalt's Trickery for you to take it out of all time. Yeah, it's such a swing. I think the last time I played Tybalt's Trickery was I was playing Minsk Beloved Ranger, and I was playing with LJ, and I was like, LJ, I got this. Tybalt's Trickery against the Atraxa deck. And I think that was their Smothering Tithe, and they flipped into a food chain. And I was just like, LJ, I'm so sorry. I have ended this game. Bad.
Yeah.
An immediate moment of, oh no, this is way worse.
I do have a similar effect to Tybalt's Trickery, Chaos Warp. Yes, that is 3 mana, but red can't really deal with enchantments very well. So this
Surprised
is
you're not running the 2-drop.
the Zia. It's I know the one that allows them to discover.
No, there's a new one. There's
Wild
another one as
Magic
well.
Surge?
Oh no,
Yes.
no. Yes, that one I will not play. I'm very against that card because exactly what you said, if I take care of their Smothering Tithe, I'm either getting a Mystic Remora, a Rhystic Study, a Necropotence, Food Chain, because it gets the same permanent. They flip
Right.
until they hit the same permanent. So
Right.
you're just basically trading something that's already bad for you for just another one. So that's why I have not ran that card, and I'm actually very against that card. If I
find the trick is I only ever use it against something that is like absolutely crushing me. Like it has to be like a Rest in Peace, or for you it'd be like a Blind Obedience.
Yes,
yes. It's like you're not gonna flip into another Blind Obedience 90% of the time, and like you like the deck that I was playing doesn't really care if your opponent draws cards at a certain point. So it's like a lot of times I was like, you know what? I do like Wild Magic Surge. I was just using it wrong before.
Fair.
Like
that's where my Zealous Conscripts comes in, because it gains control of any target permanent. So if I do need to take something, such as a Draenith Magistrate or a Blind Obedience, something that's your opponent's only. That's kind of my backup plan for that. But there are some things like a Rule Law that there's just not much I can do against.
Yeah.
I imagine a Rule of Law. You're just like, and we're waiting. I noticed you didn't add Power Balance.
No, so Power Balance is not in this deck. I am kind of a mono red fanatic, so I definitely have other decks with my Power Balance in it. But I would want to run Sensei's Divining Top if I ran that card, and that's a little bit too slow for my deck.
That's too many cards. I agree. You're right there.
And then on top of that, I do have a deck built for it where the CMC is basically 3 or less. I do have 1 5-drop and 1 4-drop in it. But I have Coercive Recruiter, Fury, Fanatic Amogus, Zealous Conscripts. Those are all 4+. Really, the only 4+ I'm going to be in is the One Ring. 5+ would be the Adnaz, but it's going to be few and far between that I'm going to be hitting one of these off of that. The deck would have to be more centered around it, basically.
Your deck would have to have a more usual mana converted CMC.
Yes,
what it is.
yeah.
We're like your average CMC is like what you have. It's an average of 3 and then 4.
Let's see here.
We can look at the stats on Moxfield here.
You have so many cards that are like more than like the average of what normal people run, which is like most decks have an average CMC of like 1.1 or 1.4. You have like a 1.96, which means on average you're hitting above 2, like you're hitting above 1, which most times with Power Balance you want to hit 1 or 0. So I guess that covers all the weaknesses of your deck. We've kind of torn it apart. Trying on the inside. Leaves me with this question: like, what are like some tips you'd give to newer players, like when they start out playing this deck? Like, what's some mistakes you made when you started out? What are some like great things to know?
Yeah.
So some mistakes that I was making is I am a turbo deck and I'm also a mono red deck. So not aggressively mulliganing was my first thing. I got it into my head that I'm in mono red and that I'm probably not going to be able to refill my hand, and that is very true for the most part, but it's better to get a good 4 or 5 than a mediocre slow 7, of course, depending on what seat you're sitting in. So get your combo pieces and get some mana and believe in the cards, to give you what you need. Sometimes you got to do that in red. And then the next thing I like to say is if you have an opportunity, once again, you're in mono red, you go for it. if they have counter magic, they have counter magic. You're going to have another combo pop up because there's a lot in here, and you're going to be able to go for it again. There is a small chance that you can win at instant speed over the top of other people, but that's not really a realistic thing in mono red. So aggressively mulligan and go for it.
Okay.
So basically, just trust in the heart of the cards.
Yep, heart of the cards, Yuki.
Yeah, this is something I believe defines newer players and experienced players. Is guys, if you can't mulligan hard with your deck, you're building it wrong.
Yes. Yes.
Your deck should be able to handle like going down to 4. Like
Yes.
it's a nightmare going down to 4, but you should be able to do it.
Yes.
What is it? A good 4 beats a mediocre 7.
100%. 100%. And I'm not gonna lie, I was one of those players. It took me quite some time to realize that, because I just got in my head that I'm in mono red and I'm not gonna get many cards. I can get
It's not
that
even
turn
a
one.
great 4. Like you don't even need a great 4 to beat a mediocre 7. You just need a good 4.
Yes.
Like it's like, oh, what did you keep? I kept the first turn heuristic study. That's a pretty good 7. Any interaction? Nah, not really. What did you keep? Well, I kept this Wheel of Fortune, Jessica's Wheel Tomb, and a Ancient Tomb and a Lotus Petal. Mana Crypt and a Lotus Petal. Yeah, I'm gonna do your hand real quick, and I'm gonna draw 7.
Yep. Exactly.
Like, how did that Ristic turn out? I never got to play it. I'm a big fan of Wheel of Fortune, especially on turn 1, turn 2. Ain't that right?
Yeah, I remember that game. That actually helped me out, I think, but the problem was you wheeled me into like almost all lands. So I was like, okay. All right. Well, next up we have a section for underrated and overlooked cards. And I know we've gone through a lot of these. But are there any in here that really stand out? There might be a couple that catch my eye. For example, Overmaster. How's that been for you?
Overmaster is kind of a meme in my play group, and that has turned into not a meme anymore, a serious card. This card actually allowed me to make it in my first actual competitive tournament. I cast it, and there proceeded to be a 5. It was turn 1 with 1 red mana. They proceeded to have a 5-minute conversation if they should allow this to resolve or not. And so, yes, it's a cantrip. That yes, you get to draw a card in red, which is great. We don't have that many of those. We do have a few, but this one's the best because I can do it turn 1 as a cantrip, or I can just randomly do it out of nowhere. And let's say the mid game, and they don't know if an Apex of Power, Dance with Calamity, or a Dual Caster Mage combo is coming, or an uncounterable wheel. This card it just really messes with their head a lot more than people think.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Is there anything else in here that really you were surprised by? Maybe actually, here's one. Throne of Eldraine.
Yes. So this is one of your other mid to late game cards that I put in there. Basically what it does is it's 5 generic mana. It's a legendary artifact. As it enters the battlefield, you choose a color. In this case, we are always going to choose red. You can tap it to add 4 mana of the chosen color and spend this mana only to cast monocolored spells of that color. And you can pay 3 and tap it, draw 2 cards, spend only mana of the chosen color to activate this ability. So this one took me a little bit of time to get into the deck. Did a bunch of testing with it. And finally I slotted it in, and it has done very well for me. Getting it out early is super helpful to ramp me up to get into my combos. And if worse comes to worse and I'm starting to fall behind, no cards in hand with not much to do, we can start drawing some cards. And it is it's only good in monocolored decks, obviously,
Mhm.
but it's definitely performed much better than I thought it would. It did take quite a bit of play testing and some convincing, but I think it's got a place to stay in the deck.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see anything else that really jumps out. So let's move on to our card by card. So yeah, we just basically kind of go through. Let's not do like every single card. And I know we've talked about a lot of these already. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So first up, we have Dragon's Rage Channeler. 1 red for 1/1. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, surveil 1. That's the more important part of the card. So yeah, why is this in the deck?
So with the amount of rituals and artifacts and such that we have, we can really alter the top of our library. We don't have the best card selection, so if I play this turn 1 and cast a Lotus Petal and there's an Apex of Power on the top of my deck, and I don't foresee that I'm going to get the amount of mana in there, or in there to cast it, then we can just pitch it and see if we can get, a creature combo off here sooner. So it's just good card selection, and it does absolutely fantastic with an Underworld Breach on the battlefield.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes. It's also a good target for Kiki Jiki to fly over people and really get some good beats in.
Oh yeah. We'll skip over Ragavan because everyone knows that by now. Skirk Prospector, we've talked about already. Tell us a little bit about Vindictive Flamestoker. So 1 red for a 1/2 for Phyrexian Wizard. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on it, and then you can pay 6 and a red, so 7 mana, sacrifice it, discard your hand, and then draw 4 cards. And the ability costs 1 less to activate for each oil counter on it, on the Flamestoker itself.
Yes. So for this one, you get it out early game, and you just basically get rid of your hand with all your fast mana and such. You're really going to reduce that cost fairly quickly. And when you do, you can just get it. I have absolutely no issues getting this down to 1 red and then discarding my hand that's non-existent and getting a fresh 4 new cards. Very realistic in this deck. Works great with other wheels as well. Just, all those rituals and all those fast mana allow you to continue going with this card to stack it up, sack it, refill your hand, and continue to go again.
Have you considered Ox of Agonis? Is that any good?
So I actually had that in this deck in the early versions as well as my Zerzoth deck. It's a little bit more. I don't want to say it's more mana intensive, but I believe it's 8 cards. It's been a while since I played it. In the graveyard, that one's a little bit harder to meet those requirements for escaping it from the graveyard. It's also less cards in your hand. This one gives you 4, and there are times where I've even been able to copy this with Kiki Jiki and for 6 mana instead of 10 mana with Ox of Agnos to continue to loop through hands and such to find what I need.
Right.
Also, notably, Ox of Agonis can only, you don't want to pay that mana to cast it, so you basically have to put it in grave. And that's another hurdle.
Yes.
It's a lot more effort. Whereas, I agree, Vindictive Flamestoker, I picked up a playset of this when this came out because I love this card. It is such an... I think this should have been on our underrated cards because I never see people play this, and I'm like, you guys are crazy. 2 mana, draw 4.
Yes. So you can easily drop that down. And it's just a self wheel instead of filling your opponent's hands or changing your opponent's hands if they have dead cards. But wheeling everybody in general is always a risk.
Yeah.
Even better, you don't even have to wait for it to have a lot of oil counters, just enough that you can do it. You need to. So it is so versatile. And it works especially well if you're running the next card, Dockside Exorcism.
Oh, gosh.
This is a little known card, super underrated, undervalued, not played in enough decks. We all know what Dockside is. Even game nights, even the Command Zone. Josh Lee Kwai originally said this was underpowered. Now he says, no, I made a mistake. This should have never been printed. This card is busted. We already talked about Reto and Stevekin. We already talked about Sardine Avenger. I'm so glad to see you playing this card. It's so good.
It is good.
Fergie, Combat Celebrant, Dualcaster Mage, Goblin Matron, Grinning Ignis. In all honesty, we covered a lot of creatures because this is one of the best creature decks. But we got Imperial Recruiter. We've covered this card before, for those who don't know. 2 generic, 1 red. Human Advisor. Search your library. When it enters the battlefield, you search your library with creature. Power 2 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Can't help but notice that's a pretty easy thing to find in your deck.
Yep.
I feel like almost everything past it, like it gets Treasonous Ogre, folks.
Yep.
Gets Combat Celebrant, gets Dockside. We mentioned Magus of the Moon, and we've got Magus of the Wheel. We haven't mentioned this, but that's because this card might be one of the oldest commander staples in this deck besides a generic mountain. This is 2 generic and a red creature, human wizard. For a generic and a red, you can tap, sacrifice it, and each player discards their hand, then draws 7 cards. It's a 3/3. Can't search for that with Imperial Recruiter, but that's a pretty good thing to copy with Kiki Jiki if you need to.
Absolutely.
Professional Face Breaker. I love this guy. Actually, I think that's a girl. I can never remember. Simeon Spirit Guide. Exile it to add a red to your mana pool. 2 generic, 1 red for an Ape Spirit 2/2. You're never casting this card, but we all say that, but I've definitely cast it. I'm pretty sure you have as well.
100%. If I get it off of Apex of Power, it Dance with Calamity, you best believe we're going to have a 2/2 beater.
Yeah.
It's one of those cards we always say, it's never getting cast. And then it's like, I do need a blocker.
Yep, we need to block them slicers.
Yeah, we got Treasure Naver, Fanatic of Mogus. I love Minotaurs. Perforos, God of the Forge, Treasonous Ogre, Coercive Recruiter, Fury, Port Razor, Zealous Conscripts, and Godo, the Bandit Warlord. We basically covered like 90% of your creatures, but your sorceries, on the other hand, also 90% of them.
That is very true. Yeah.
After the first one and the second to last one are the only 2 we haven't covered. They're running Gamble.
Makes sense. It's a tutor.
Yeah.
You need them.
Always.
Yeah.
We already covered Lithomatic Barrage, Overmaster, Rite of Flame, the best ritual in the game. Molten Duplication, Twin Flame, Heat Shimmer, Jessica's Will, Wheel of Fortune, Dance with Calamity, Blasphemous Act. Big fan of this card. More people need to run this. This is like, if you don't need more than one, if you don't need more than your creature combo, like, and your creatures don't have a lot of value on their own, which in your deck, it looks like a lot of them just have generic ETBs, and you don't really mind if they die.
Then we send it. This card is by far my favorite board wipe. By far.
What?
It has been unbelievably good against so many decks. You want to get a lot of dorks out, a lot of creatures to deal combat damage, to get your Tymna triggers. The board's going to be filled with creatures. So this is going to be 10 out of 10. It will have a 1 red mana cost.
The Thyam Nightmare. Blasphemous Act is 8 generic and 1 red. Costs 1 less for each creature on the battlefield and deals 13 damage to each creature. This card is the nightmare for creature decks. It is like the worst, but the best. And we've got Apex of Power. When we come to the instance, you want to cover them, Ganesh?
Yeah. Let's go with, we talked about Gutshot. There's Lightning Bolt. We talked about Magnetic Theft. You're on both blasts, so counter target blue spells or blue permanents or destroy them. Running Volley, we talked about. Abrade, deal 3 damage to a creature or destroy target artifact. 2 rituals, Chaos Warp, Deflecting Swat, and a Seething Song. I don't know there's too much to talk about. Just Deflecting Swat's kind of like a counter spell, just choosing targets for spell or ability. You can play it for free if you're got your commander out. And then Seething Song just gives you red mana. Same with Pyretic and Desperate Ritual. Not too much.
Notably, must remind people, deflecting SWAT doesn't have to have a valid target.
Yeah.
That ability doesn't have to target. This is notable for Runaway Steamkin and Bergie, and for your Vindictive Flamestoker.
Yeah, you can just cast it out as long as there's some spell or ability on the stack. No matter what, as long as it's not like Split Second or something, you can cast this spell.
So, like, if you had, I don't know, like if you cast Rite of Flame, you have a Bergie and your commander out, you can cast Deflecting SWAT and make an additional red mana real quick. It's such a hidden mode of this, and it's so important. Like, it seems like it wouldn't be, but it is.
I'm learning stuff about my own deck right now, so you guys keep going. I like it.
I'll cover the artifacts. I'll give you the enchantments, Ganesh. I love artifacts. We got Chrome Mox, we got Jeweled Lotus, we got Lotus Petal, we got Mana Crypt, we got Mana Vault, we got Soul Ring, we got my OG fave, Ruby Medallion, we got Sword of the Animist, we got Curse Mirror. Sword of the Animist, we haven't actually mentioned it. 2 generic legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Whenever equipped creature attacks, you search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. Equip cost is 2. Unusual in cEDH. I think this is one of the few decks that runs it. I imagine because you just like mountains.
Yes, mountains. I do run Valakut, and I get to attack a lot and multiple times, so we can definitely get our Valakut up and running.
Curse Mirror, I'm going to go over this again because it's one of my favorite cards in the game. More people need to run this. For 2 generic and a red, at 1 red. As Curse Mirror enters the battlefield, you may have it become a copy of any creature on the battlefield until end of turn, except it has haste. This is one of the best clones. If you cannot run other clones, you should run Curse Mirror because people have great creatures. And it would be nice if you could have them too. This has been a Tymna, an Agila. This has been a Darkside. This has been a Magda. It's the best. We got Helm of the Host, the One Ring, underrated card. Not enough people play this. And then we've got Throne of Eldritch. Whoa, is the One Ring $129 now? Oh, yeah. Oh my.
The foil for that is $437. Yikes.
Yeah. I have a proxy of the One Ring. I don't need it. Oh my gosh. That's pretty impressive. Throne of Eldraine, we've already gone over. And then we've got enchantments.
Enchantments, we talked about Goblin Bombardment and Impact Tremors already, Rolling Vortex, Breach, Blood Moon. We covered actually all the enchantments already. So I guess we'll just skip to the lands. The only land here that isn't, or I guess there's 2. The only lands here that I've seen that aren't just basically ramp are Cavern of Souls, Urza Saga, Valakut, and Arena of Glory, and also I guess Den of the Bugbear. But all the other lands are just either basics, fetches, or ramp like Ancient Tomb or Gemstone. I get Cavern of Souls. You want to make your creatures uncounterable. What are you fetching off of Urza Saga usually? Is it usually just like Mana Crypt, or is there some other thing you want?
So for Urza Saga, yes, there's definitely quite a few options. It's Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Jeweled Lotus, and Mana Vault. Mana Vault is when I want to be a bit more explosive to combo off, get into my higher mana cards faster, or my rituals to chain off a combo. But for the most part, it is just your generic Soul Ring and then your Jeweled Lotus.
Yeah, okay. So, but everything else in your list is mainly fetches and basics. You're on 16 basics, and then you're on every red colored fetch. Arid Mesa, Bloodstained Mire, Scalding Tarn, and Wooded Foothills. Talk to us a little bit about Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle. How has that been for you? So, for those that aren't familiar, it's a non-basic land. ETB's tapped, and it has whenever a mountain enters the battlefield under your control. If you have at least 5 other mountains, you can have Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle, deal 3 damage to any target. And it also has tap, add red.
So for Valakut, it's actually been performing rather well. I just had a small tournament nearby me where I was up against a Kinnan player. a Convolk deck that I can't remember who the commander was, and then a Tiny Bones deck. And I did get my Koth Fire Resistance out very early, and also had my Valakut out, and just was fetching mountains with my Planeswalker with my Valakut. Since I got it out turn 1, just started, getting more lands. There was a Tiny Bones on the battlefield, so the game was getting slowed down because not many people had cards in hand. So I just kept filling my hands with mountains, and then I stole Tiny Bones to get the end of turn trigger to draw cards, and just started pinging. If I saw that Kinnan on the battlefield, he was dead. If I saw any creature on the battlefield, they were definitely dead. It is, it comes in tapped, which is definitely a downside, but it's one of those cards. So once again, if that game gets bogged down for some reason, we're going to get some good value out of it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's going to wrap up our card for card. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the deck, or any shoutouts you'd like to give to maybe like a shop or a friend or anything like that?
I would like to give a shout out to my local shop, Hydro Pump, and then to one of my buddies who got deployed to Japan. His name's Q. Me and him have really learned from each other a lot and how to improve in Magic, and I can't wait for him to come back so I can play a few more games with him before he leaves me again. But yeah. So shout out to Q.
Cool. Yeah, there's one more thing we've got, and that is, of course, our patented, very serious spicy scale. So if you look on the document I sent you, at the bottom there is our scale. So it's going to be going from 0, which is a bell pepper, all the way up to 2 million Scoville units with the Carolina Reaper. So where would you put your deck on a scale of 0 to 2 million?
I would personally like to, yes, I'm going to be biased, but I'm going to put it, probably up with the Carolina Reaper. It's a monocolored deck. You do not, yes, you see Magda and such, but you don't see too much of them anymore. And, bringing these decks to the competitive level, I think really opened people's eyes and shocked them and surprised them. Multiple tournaments, people looked at me and like, "You're the man, bro. You brought Kiki Jiki to top 4, to top 16, 17th place at the largest cEDH tournament that we've had yet." And I think that's the reason why I'm going to put it there. Not only from my personal bias, but just from some of the reactions I've got from other people.
What do you think, Samurai?
I'm going to go in the opposite direction. This is a bell pepper.
Wow.
Maybe I've just been playing Commander for a little bit longer, but I do definitely remember Kiki Jiki decks. I do remember cEDH Kiki Jiki decks. So for me, it's more like, I've seen this before. Some of the cards may change, but the actual stuff has stayed the same. It's nice to see you adapting to not always being able to get like a turbo win by adding in some of this mid-range. But as far as spice goes, none of this would surprise me. I'd be like, yep. As you play every card, I'd be like, yeah, no, I expect it. Yep, this is some good guacamole with this bell pepper. This is like some nice Italian sausage with this bell pepper. Like this goes great in my pasta. Salsa. Who puts bell peppers in salsa?
I'd have to put it honestly smack dab in the middle. I'd give it the Hungarian yellow hot wax, and my reasoning for that is I haven't been playing cEDH quite as long as Samurai has, and I have never seen this in a tournament. Like, I've never seen it be played as a commander. I've seen it be... You know
what else? I was at the boil with him, so I saw it.
Yeah. I've seen players play this card.
Yes.
But I have never seen it as a commander, and yeah, I get it's a turbo deck, and the only reason I'm not placing it higher is many of the win lines for this deck are very established.
Yes.
The conscripts we know about, Godo we know about, Dualcaster we all know about, and that's pretty much the whole deck is we're trying to land one of these. There's not too much other crazy stuff going on. The Koth Planeswalkers are pretty interesting, I will say. I don't know. It is kind of just, it does kind of make you think a little bit, just having it as the commander, and having Kiki Jiki as the commander does open up a few more like options that like make you think twice about certain cards. Like doubling up on Facebreaker triggers is pretty cool. Like the clone effect is honestly just pretty strong in general, and there's cool things you can do like the Combat Celebrant is just, that isn't infinite, right? Like that's just straight up.
Yes. As long as you can have that token swinging in. But I think I looked at it a little bit differently than you guys, as in like looking like inside the deck. I would definitely place it where you did, Ganesh, to where it's, it's well-known combos and such. I guess for me, I was looking at it as in, if you look at your EDH top 16 decks, you're not going to see this deck, but I feel that, I have performed with it, and that I will say my play group at first, when I first started playing with them, they're like, "You're bringing mono red to a tournament?" And I'm like, yes. I'm like, this is what I know how to play. I'm not going to sleeve together, a deck I've never played and then not know my lines. I was like, I'm going to play this and see how I do. And then I showed them that this deck is not a joke. I actually had one of the guys I shouted out. He came up to me after, a few of my successful tournaments, and he's like, "Hey, man, I doubted you at first, but he's like, I'm not taking your deck as a joke anymore. He's like, it's the real deal." And he's like, "I'm coming for you." And that has definitely made me a better player. But so that's why I put it on that part of the scale, in the sense is that you're not going to see, no offense to anybody, another blue farm, another Kinnan, another Grixis pile. It's different from your norm, basically, is what I was going off of.
That's why I gave it like some spice. Like, unless they're playing against specifically you, it's a little unlikely they will ever play against this commander.
I'm gonna say it like this. It's like a plane. It's like flying planes, okay? Mediocre pilot flying a Learjet crashes into a mountain. Great pilot flying a crop duster will go through a barn without touching the sides. The skill of the pilot matters a lot more than people think. Roll on Blue Farm is like the best example I could find of this. That dude is like a future Hall of Famer for Magic, and he crushes it with Blue Farm. Ganesh has been playing Blue Farm for well over a year, right?
Yeah.
You just crushed another tournament.
I did, yes. Two in a row, actually, in the same weekend.
I was doing fine on my Pirates deck. For me, like, skill with your deck matters more than anything.
Yeah. Keep
playing the same deck, you'll get there. But this deck, again, I've been playing this game for a while. I was around when Kamigawa got released. Kiki Jiki is not new to me.
Yep.
For me, it's just not spicy. I do like it. I will probably be practicing this up next week. But again, because I know how this deck works.
The meta, the way the meta is going actually benefits this deck as well as all turbo decks, because the more turbo the meta gets, the more likely a turbo deck will win. Because if you're one turbo deck against three mid-range decks, like, or three mid-range / control decks, it's kind of hard to win. It can be. But if you're the second turbo deck at the player, it becomes very, very difficult for those mid-range and control players to control both of you, unless they get also a good start, like if they're able to get like an early Ristic or something. So
very, very true.
Yeah.
We joke about this being the mid-range hell meta. You know what happens with mid-range hell? You have to get to the mid game.
Yeah.
If you lose on turn one, that doesn't happen. It's a little secret, folks.
All right. Well, I think that will wrap us up for Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. And thank you again, Corey, for coming on the show and sharing with us the glory of the Goblin Shaman.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolute All right, pleasure. Y'all. we will see you later.
Bye.